That was none other than Magic Dick and the Jack Isles Band, Richard Solwitz on the harmonica. Amazing harmonica player. This is the Andy Amanda show. Amanda's not with us today. She's got some obligations. She had to attend to. So it's Andy Kimmel here, along with our show coordinator. What's his name again? Cornell Butler. Ross.
Yeah, Cornell Butler. That's my name.
Cornell Butler.
Yes, it's me, guys. I'm back. We're
back. This is the Monday show, the Andy Amanda program, brought to you live. We are uniquely the only show that would normally connect UK. Excuse me, I'm just having a piece of key lime pie here as I'm speaking.
That sounds good.
It is good. We normally connect the United Kingdom with the United States live for 1 hour talk show 3 days a week, and we talk about everything. There's stuff that we don't cover on the show. Any subject matter is good, and most importantly, what's on your mind? Call us at 515-605-9888 and join the program. You're welcome to. And Cornell, as I said, as we were talking earlier,
yes,
we have a special guest coming on the show in about 25 minutes, who is was a former director of NBC Network News. He's been on our show before, and prior to that, he was a field reporter for CBS Radio, WCAU out of Philadelphia, and he had the opportunity to interview and have a discussion with the late Jimmy Hoffa, James Hoffa, and so much has been written and produced, film, television, everything about Jimmy Hoffa. He was the Teamster boss back then. And what this interview is, a lot of people, a lot of workers, a lot of union workers, or a significant number, a number to justify the forming of a parallel union out of the control of James Hoffa, was being discussed and launched back then. And evidently, James Hoffa had three of his union people, his henchmen, whatever you want to call them, beat up on three of these rival union, or three of got this wrong. Three of Hoffa's guys, three Teamsters, beat up on a rival union person who's had something to do with the launching of this rival union back then. And what makes it so unique is we have a live recording of a James Hoffa interview on our show, on the Andy Amanda Show. It was done in 1962, and now we're uniquely presenting this to you exclusively on the Andy Amanda Show. So it's kind of cool. I don't know how many of our listeners remember the movie The Irishman with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci and all about Hoffa. And Pacino was amazing. And you informed me earlier, I forgot that Jack Nicholson was also on this show. And Justine was in the show? Oh,
yeah.
You did see it. Oh, Justine, who, she's comes on our show. Justine just signaled to me that she also saw The Irishman. Cool. What about
that movie was awesome.
So we're going to talk about that when Bob Kimmel joins our program. And it's cool also because he's a radio guy. His career went on beyond NBC. And he's got an incredible foundation in radio, obviously with that those positions he's held. And last time he was on our show, which was I want to think almost a year ago. I don't have to look back, but he was very complimentary to what we are doing on this show and what we are presenting and how we present it. And it meant a lot coming from him. Somebody with his background, former director of NBC Radio, network radio news, and beyond, So it's kind of cool. So anyway, Cornell, how was your weekend?
Oh man, my weekend was very nice, man. Very, very hot, but it was very nice, man. I chilled out and drank a few beers, some martinis and ate some great food. But it was cool. It was awesome, man. It was very awesome. How was yours, Andy?
I had a great time. Saturday, I don't know what I did Saturday. I don't remember. But Saturday evening, I was up in Pasadena, which is near my house, and just hung out on Colorado Boulevard, which is kind of like the main drag. They call it Old Town Pasadena. Some people refer to it as Mini Manhattan. It has that Lower East Side vibe to it. And I stumbled upon an area called One Colorado. It's like a big square with lights and, off the main drag. And they have a concert series there that I didn't know about. And I found this incredible band that was just there. It's free series, and a local band. And I got some video clips and pictures. I should put them on our show, but they were great. And I was just having such a great time, just on my own, hanging out in Pasadena. What a cool town. Then yesterday,
man,
I was down in.
It
I'm sorry.
reminds me of the Philadelphia Old City. In Philadelphia Old City.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. Very nice, pleasant.
Yeah, real nice. And then yesterday I was down in Venice Beach. A lot of people may know of Venice Beach. It's a ton of tourists down there, and also locals and so forth. But something's never changed, and Venice has remained the same since the '60s, I swear. But I had a great time down there hanging out, and took some great beach pictures, and also a lot of big sailboats out there yesterday, which is cool. Maybe there's some kind of regatta, I don't know. But anyway, also went to a place called the Venice Ale House right on the main walkway on Venice Beach. Folks, if you haven't been there, if you've been to Venice Beach, if you're local, if you're going to visit Southern California, of course you're probably going to, if you're a tourist, you probably want to experience Venice. The place is called the Venice Ale House, and it's right up, patio right on the walkway, and really, really good food, some great beers, and hung out there for a while. And kudos out to the Venice Ale House. Great establishment in Venice Beach, California. You got to check that out. So we should talk to him about coming on our show,
Yes, definitely. And I have to get over there, too, to visit you guys, man, because the pictures that you sent me, man, they was beautiful. And I was like, I got to get over there.
Yeah, you certainly do. Hey, also what I've been looking at is what in the news, that is, is looking back over the hearings. What have they uncovered thus far? Where are we going? Will Merrick Garland indict the former president? And it's obvious that he's committed crimes. If he doesn't get indicted, I said I was going to get in my boat and sail away. I don't have a boat. I have to go get it and sail away. But anyway, I have, from time to time we get voicemails, callers, and we also get a TikTok, and just kind of see what are people saying, what are people thinking, what are on folks' minds. And of course, we invite you to call the show directly, which some people do and leave messages and emails. But our live number to get on the show is 515-605-9888. You can also email us at andyandamandershow@gmail.com. And we miss Amanda, of course, on today's show. But what I thought I might want to do. Oh yeah, man. Yeah, we do. My internet wife. You know what I mean? Life couldn't be better.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And she's not here today, so I know.
Don't worry, bro. I'm your internet brothers. You have your internet brother here. So even off the line, we are brothers. Yeah. Well, the question has always come to you. It's been presented, of course.
To attain your epic ass, can you describe your exercise regime?
I hire people. They do a website. It costs me $3.
Yeah. How about you? He hires people. How about you? Yeah. Do you exercise? Do you work out?
Well, actually, Andy, I work out when I pick up my beer and put it in my mouth and drink it.
Oh, that sounds reasonable. That sounds.
I try to work out sometimes, take walks and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not that type of guy that like that, be all muscle bound and all that. I just want to look normal, but I keep my health. I try to eat right, drink right, and have sex right. No.
I'm going to play. As I was saying, I want to play a couple of things. Just voicemail or just off TikTok. I think this is from TikTok. Well, it might be voicemail. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to play an audio clip here. That let me find the right one. Yeah, I want to play an audio clip here. Oh God, here's one. Before I do that, Matt Gaetz is a congressman from Florida. Trump, conspiracy theorist, liar. He's accused of sex trafficking. I mean, the guy's got so much baggage, and how the people of Florida put him in office beats me. But listen to this. I think I told you about this before we went on air, but take a listen to this. You ready? You better be sitting down when you hear this. Here we go. Listeners, listen. All our listeners, sit down. I want you to, when you hear this, this is the voice of Matt Gaetz at a rally, who is an elected congressman. Here we go.
Like, why is it that the women with the least likelihood of getting pregnant are the ones most worried about having abortions? Nobody wants to impregnate you if you look like a thumb. These people are odious on the inside and out. They're like 5'2", 350 pounds, and they're like, give me my abortions or I'll get up and march and protest. And I'm thinking, march? You look like you got ankles weaker than the legal reasoning behind Roe versus Wade. A few of them need to get up and march. They need to get up and march for like an hour a day, swing those arms, get the blood pumping, maybe mix in a salad.
That was a congressman. Mm-hmm. Matt Gaetz.
I thought
Matt Gaetz. You know what I think we're going to need to do? I think we need to contact his office. I think we need to call.
Definitely. Yeah, let's call him.
You agree? I think we need to call his office.
Yeah.
We need to talk to him. Yeah.
Bring him on.
We're going to try this. 850-479-1183. Let's try it. 850-479-1183. Matt Gaetz. We're going to talk to him about what we just heard. 850-479-1183. Let's try it.
Let's go.
Thank you for calling the office of Congressman Matt Gaetz. We are currently unavailable to take your call. Please leave your name and a number where you can be reached, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you again for calling. Have a great day.
Hi, this is Andy from the Andy and Amanda Show. We're live on the radio. I've got our show coordinator, Cornell Butler, with us today. We're calling you. Hi, Cornell. Say hi. We got Matt Gaetz' office here on the phone and their voicemail. We wanted to get a response from your office, Matt Gaetz. Would even be better. Let's invite Matt on our show. Email Andy and Amanda Show at gmail.com. We want to talk to Matt Gaetz about a really disturbing speech he made regarding women who are pro-choice and what they might look like and so forth. I mean, I can't believe that this guy is an elected congressman. It's appalling what's going on in this country that would put somebody like that in office. We want to get Matt Gaetz on the show, and we'll give him every opportunity to explain what he said. We'd like to have him on. I think he owes the population an explanation for those comments. Again, Andy and Amanda Show at gmail.com. We are on the radio right now. We'd love to have Matt Gaetz on our show. Just appalling to me, but I'll leave my opinions quiet. If he comes on, let him speak, and we give him every opportunity. Just want to see what he has to say about us and if he feels okay about it, especially with his anyway, I'm not going to go into it, but please email our show, Andy and Amanda Show at gmail.com. Let us know if Matt Gaetz can come on our show. Believe me, we do not bite. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Okay.
You there? All right. How was it? How'd I do?
You did great. I'm glad that you realized that you was on the air. So I was like, Andy, we gotta be good. When you get on the show, that's what we do.
Yeah. Okay, moving along. Anyway, we're going to call we're going to ringy-ding Bob Kimmel up, our special guest, in just a few minutes. But before we do that, I want to play this. I want to play another voice message or TikTok message here. I think, as a case might be on this recording, regarding Trump's being guilty of criminal malice of what the congressional panel heard. This is recorded the day of the final summer hearing. It will continue in September. This is the last one of the summer. Take a listen to what the former President of the United States is probably guilty in a criminal matter of. Just take a listen. Tell me if you agree. And if you disagree or agree, 515-605-9888. Let us know.
My friends, the key to tonight's hearing is found in criminal law, especially in three elements of the most serious criminal violations: knowledge, intent, and malice. Now, the committee has already confirmed that Trump knew he lost the election. They've also confirmed that he intended to stop the transition of power to Joe Biden. Tonight, the committee provided evidence of Donald Trump's malice his deliberate intent to stop or delay the electoral count with a violent attack on the Capitol that endangered the lives of many people in order to remain in power. Now, evidence of Trump's malice came in 10 particular pieces. Number one, Trump was aware that armed rioters were in the Capitol. He spent hours in the dining room next to the Oval Office watching Fox News coverage of the attack. Number two, Trump refused to take action.
President Trump did not fail to act during the 187 minutes between leaving the ellipse and telling the mob to go home. He chose not to act.
Number three, he could easily have done so. He was a 60-second walk away from the White House press room.
If the president had wanted to make a statement and address the American people, he could have been on camera almost instantly.
If the commander-in-chief, you got an assault going on the Capitol of the United States of America. There's nothing. No call, nothing, zero.
Number four, he chose to provoke the rioters instead. When the riot was underway, his first tweet was, quote, "Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country." Number five, then Trump said the minimum to the rioters. Eventually, he sent out 2 tweets urging his supporters to remain peaceful with no violence, but neither of these were adequate. In fact, rather than call the rioters off, Trump indicated they were doing the right thing. When House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy urged Trump to take action, Trump responded,
"Well, Kevin, I guess they're just more upset about the election, theft than you are."
Number 7, in his final video statement to the rioters,
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us.
He complimented them. He went to the Rose Garden and said, quote,
"We love you. You're very special."
Number 8, he showed no remorse. At 6 o'clock, he tweeted, "These are the things that happen when a victory is stripped away from great patriots. Remember the day forever. Go home with love." And number 9, even after the 2020 election was certified, he refused to say the election was over.
Congress has certified the results. I don't want to say the election's over. I just want to say Congress has certified the results without saying the election's over, okay?
Trump has never accepted any responsibility for the attack and never acknowledged the deaths of law enforcement officers. Why? Because he does not want to be faulted or imply any criticism of the rioters, of his supporters. And 10, Trump's entire violent plot was premeditated.
The Democrats, more of our people vote early that count. Theirs voted mail. And so they're going to have a natural disadvantage, and Trump's going to take advantage of it. That's our strategy. He's going to throw himself a winner. So when you wake up Wednesday morning, it's going to be a firestorm.
You just take a look at all of these states that we've won tonight, and then you take a look at the kind of margins that we've won them by. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
These 10 revelations clearly established Trump's malice. He not only violated his oath of office, he also is a criminal.
What do you think?
It was awesome, man. Awesome.
Yeah. It laid it out very clearly. I mean, I could have said the same thing. I would have said the same thing, but this is so much easier to do. And if he is not criminally indicted, I mean, it goes beyond that. There's so much more. I mean, I just can't believe that people would actually consider him to be president of the United States again. Oh, it's beyond me. We're going to hear one more. This is regarding Trump's lies, continuing to push the conspiracy theory. And I don't want to beat this to death. We've beat it enough. We've talked about it enough. It's just I want to get this.
Trump be lying?
No, he's not a liar. No,
Nah.
He's a successful businessman. He knows more about the generals over in the Middle East than the field generals. He knows more about the enemy activities in the Middle East than the generals do. Remember that? Mm-hmm.
Before they was born.
He knows more about immigration. He knows more about everything than everybody does. There's nothing that anybody knows that he doesn't know more about. Nothing. Mm-hmm.
You know what? I heard that he know how to make a Tesla without, using tools.
Yeah, I heard that too. Mm-hmm. He knows more about building cars than Elon Musk. Hey, let's listen to this. Here we go.
You know when you're walking into a building behind somebody and they're pretty far ahead, like 20, 25 feet, and they really should just go in, but they hold the door open for you anyway, so you got to do this really weird little walk run to get there a little faster? Well, if that had a baby with the Scott's Tots episode of The Office, it still wouldn't be as cringy as people still now saying that the election was stolen in 2020. I am kind of morbidly curious, though. At this point, is it as simple as you've just doubled down and tripled down and quadrupled down so many times and made it so much of a part of your identity and formed a community around these beliefs that you just can't see the way back? Or do you genuinely think that now Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and Mike Lindell and all these people are actually going to be able to substantiate their claims about the stolen election and present evidence that they failed to present for nearly a year and a half since Joe Biden's inauguration? You do realize they've never actually presented evidence, right? Not that it matters in the grand scheme of things. Republican lawmakers across the country were still able to treat these conspiracy theories as actionable, despite the fact that they take about 20 seconds on Google to debunk and create a new legislation restricting voting rights as a result. But the same pattern is played out hundreds of times. These people are all loud and confident and boisterous until you get them in a courtroom under oath where the truth actually matters. I think Sidney Powell has to be my favorite. Remember her? The one that said she was going to release the Kraken and blow this thing wide open and everyone in Washington besides President Trump was going to jail? What do you think happened when she was sued for defamation? Did she get out of it by presenting that evidence and saying, look, it wasn't defamation, it was the truth, here's the proof? Nope, she used the Tucker Carlson defense. Ex-Trump attorney Sidney Powell's weeks-long campaign to invalidate the results of the 2020 election was not based in fact, her lawyer said Monday. No reasonable person would conclude that the statements were truly statements of fact, Powell's attorney said in a court filing defending her against a $1 billion defamation lawsuit from Dominion Voting Systems. Yep, it couldn't have been defamation because what I said was so crazy and unfounded that it should have been clear to anybody that heard it. And if you believed it, even if you were the President of the United States, that's on you. So don't be shy. Please tell me, how do you think this is going to happen? Walk me through how now, at this point, it's going to suddenly be proven beyond reasonable doubt that the election was stolen and Joe Biden's going to be removed as president. Be specific.
And I don't think anybody can be spit it out specific. You know, they can't. They've tried. They can't. Anyway, enough of that. As I said, I don't want to keep pounding this and pounding this and pounding. We've done it on the show so many times. But the only reason I keep bringing it up here and there is just to bring our listeners' reaction to the conversation. Email the show, andy@demandyourshow@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Or call the show, 515-605-9888. And what we're going to do now, Cornell, is we're going to move the show right along here. And as we spoke of earlier, we have a very special guest joining the show again for the second time. Robert Kimmel, who is the former director of radio news, NBC News in New York, and prior to that was with CBS Radio in Philadelphia. And we're going to push a button here and get Bob to join the show. Hello, are you with us?
Hello, do you hear me?
Yeah, here we go. Yes. There you're on. How are you doing? Yes.
Andy,
loud and clear.
How you doing? Do you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Okay, very good. Doing
good
fine, thank you.
You got me on the line here. We've got Cornell, who is the show coordinator. Amanda, unfortunately, couldn't make the show today over in the UK. She got some other obligations. But we're here and proceeding with the show accordingly. We do miss her, but we're moving ahead. Yes. Good. So we were talking earlier in the show, you were going to come on, and we were talking about Jimmy Hoffa, the former Teamsters union that nobody knows exactly what happened to him way back when, a lot of speculation and so forth. And you had a very unique opportunity to sit down and have a face-to-face interview, a discussion with him, of which you happen to have a recording of.
I did. This was 60 years ago, as a matter of fact. The FBI, just at the end of last week, announced it had given up a long search in a Jersey City, New Jersey landfill for Jimmy Hoffa's remains. A former old mob-connected guy claimed that Hoffa was buried there in one of a number of places where he allegedly was disposed of, but no success, of course. James R. Hoffa took over the presidency of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters in 1957. They were truck drivers and warehouse men and such, made up his membership. It became the largest union in the U.S. with his leadership at that time. And by the way, the R, his middle initial, stands for, rather appropriately, Riddle. And it's been a riddle for about 47 years as to what happened to him when he disappeared in 1975. Hoffa had been associated with organized crime during his early years in the Teamsters, and in 2 different trials in 1964, he was convicted of jury tampering, attempted bribery, conspiracy, mail and wire fraud for improper use of the union pension fund, and he ended up in jail, in 1967, but was released in 1971 under a commutation deal with President Nixon. And despite being barred at the time, he made attempts to get back into the Teamsters leadership, but was opposed by alleged mob-connected members. And, of course, he disappeared on July 30th, 1975. And the rumors and unverified reports were that he was murdered by the mafia. But getting back to my interview with him in 1962, I was then with the Philadelphia station, as you mentioned. It was then a CBS station. And I was invited to lunch with him and to interview him at Teamsters Union headquarters in Philadelphia. At the time, it was a good-sized group of union members had been organizing into a group called The Voice, trying to break away from the Teamsters because of all the allegations made against the union. And one leader of the Voice group was Charles Myers. And there had been fights, one in front of union headquarters where some members were injured, several hospitalized. My interview with him and the report was soon made after that. Here it is from 60 years ago.
3 men have been held in bail for a further hearing on charges of having beaten Voice official Eugene Noe Sunday evening. The same 3 were allegedly the victims of Voice members Sunday. But Teamster boss James Hoffa claims the 3 held today had no connections with the Teamsters.
I'm not responsible for what people do in the street who are not members of the Teamsters unions. But certainly Charlie Myers is responsible for what Charlie Myers did. Charlie Myers under $1,000 bond for an aggravated assault. The 3 people who they're accusing are not even members of the Teamsters union. And so Kirshner and Myers can't duck the issue. They created the violence. They're part of it. Myers is involved now in litigation.
You say that these 3 men who were beaten are not members of the Teamsters union?
They are not.
James Hoffa, who says the drivers have absolutely no connections with his Local 107. However, this reporter answered a phone at their hospital bedside at today's hearing. The call was from Local 107, and a secretary at the local's headquarters asked that one of the men, Joseph Smith, call Teamsters headquarters as soon as possible. Bob Kimmel reporting.
Well, that was it.
Wow. Oh, my God.
So I didn't confront him at the time, but he obviously said one thing, and then when I went up to the hospital room where these 3 guys were, that phone call came in from the union to have one of them talk to the folks at the union. So obviously there was some connection. And by the way, in addition to what I reported during the lunch with Hoffa, he really ranted against Bobby Kennedy, who had worked with a number of Senate committees to investigate Hoffa. And of course, Bobby Kennedy did the same thing when he was appointed Attorney General. Kennedy and Hoffa were real enemies. That's the way it was. Those years back then.
My God,
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Bob?
Yes.
To have something that ancient, were you kind of scared to have something like that because nobody wanted to tamper with that type of stuff?
At the time, I really hadn't thought too much about that. I wanted to get the story as I reported it out, and that's what I did. And no, I thought about it afterwards and said to myself, I'm calling Hoffa something other than what he would like to be called, I'm afraid. And I don't know what may happen. But then again, I wasn't terribly concerned about it.
Okay. Wow. We don't know exactly what happened to James Hoffa, do we? I mean, there's been a lot of speculation. A lot of people said
no. There
was.
He was trying to get back into union leadership, and there were elements in the union then, of course, that didn't want that to happen. Presumably, the Teamsters Union back in those days had some kind of unusual affiliations, so to speak. And there was a discussion that one of the Teamsters folks in New Jersey, who had connected with some mob connections, may have been involved in arranging something with Hoffa, but it never really there was never any detailed report on anything in regard to what exactly happened to him.
I'm surprised that even looking back in the 1975, and fast forward to more recent times where somebody who was maybe perhaps experiencing the last phase of the life or whatever it might be didn't come out and say, hey, here, I was involved in that, here's what happened, and
Well, there has been some, I think there have been a few allegations made by some of these unworthy characters, so to speak, but nothing has ever been verified, it's just word of mouth allegations, rumors, and such. But nothing was ever. They never found his body. No one could figure out exactly how he may have been done away with, and so on. So the riddle remains.
Wow.
Well, thank you for that. What insight? I mean, what was so you interviewed Hoffa? You had lunch with him outside.
I had lunch with him.
Yeah, what was that like? What was he like outside of the interview? Just to be in his presence, and what was that lunch
Well,
like?
he was very adamant in what he had to say in regard to investigations against him, obviously, and I don't remember every little move or action or what he said at the time, but he was he seemed to be very adamant about what he said, and of course, as I mentioned, one of the aspects of at the lunch was his ranting against Bobby Kennedy, and he didn't do this, and he did, they was set up, and so on and so forth. But he was not at all reticent to express his feelings and attitude about folks at that point.
I almost forgot about this, but my first airline job was a pilot, regional airline. The pilots were Teamsters. I was a Teamster. And I'll never forget when I went to, you get hired and you go to class, and during orientation from HR, they give you paperwork, and you went down to, I was in Columbus, Ohio, and you go down to the Teamsters local hall and you sign up and blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't believe it, joining like a professional pilot. I'm joining the Teamsters. And I remember, what the heck, I'm a pilot. I don't know anything about the union or the Teamsters or anything else. So I just remember going up to the window when it was my turn to fill out whatever paperwork I had to. I asked if there was any place I could go at march or protest, and he said, "Hey, what can I want to go march, Teamster." And it's funny because part of the paperwork was that you were as a brother, even though I was an airline pilot, and there were some regional airlines that did belong to Teamsters. That's the way it was before the Airline Pilots Association stepped in back then. You were supposed to support your fellow Teamsters. So in other words, if it's a trucking company, whatever, on strike, you're supposed to march with them and give them support as an airline pilot.
I had no idea that pilots were part of the Teamsters. Actually, I was not aware of that.
I couldn't believe it myself, except when I saw my paycheck and saw the deduction. I'm like, okay, okay, woo, all right. But eventually the Airline Pilots Association stepped in. But for some of the smaller regionals that I was first hired by way back then, small companies with 100 or less pilots at that time, were quite a few of them were Teamsters members. I don't know why or how or what the deal was, but that was interesting. And then ultimately the Airline Pilots Association stepped in, and that's where most of them are. There are a couple of them. There are a few still regional and local commuter or regional airline Teamsters members. The pilots are. They still do exist. Yeah, they still do exist. Yeah. Anyway, that was interesting. But what an interesting story, Robin. Thank you so much for playing that clip. It's wow.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yes. And how's everything else going? How are you doing? I know this is you were on the show previously. We enjoy having you on, and some of the stories you told about. We talked about the Apollo missions that you were involved in reporting, and Apollo 11, and the Apollos that led up to that first landing on the moon, and other historic events that you were involved in covering as a director.
Oh, yeah. Well, both as a reporter, a writer, and director of network radio news at NBC, I got around presidential trips here and there, and so it was quite an eventful number of decades for me in the journalism business.
Yeah,
and
fabulous.
Did a documentary about 20 years ago, which involved Raoul Wallenberg, and I did some traveling for that as well. and so forth. So I'm still involved with a local newspaper here in Westchester County.
Wow. Once a newsman, always a newsman.
Yeah. Hard to break away.
Hard to break away.
Hey, Mr. Bob, I have a question for you. What was your favorite place being a journalist and working CBS? I'm sorry. The best.
Well, I actually I started out after working in Philly for a little while, getting drafted and ending up in American Forces Network, and I was stationed in Germany for a while, and then as a civilian for AFN in Paris, where I actually watched Winston Churchill getting a medal, Liberation Medal, from Charles de Gaulle at the Élysée Palace, and I think that must have been, in 1958 or so, back then, and so forth. So I had a lot of interesting adventures, interviewed on a number of presidential trips when I was with NBC, and so forth as well. So, I had a lot of adventures as a journalist.
Wow. Another question. As a journalist, I'm sure you're kind of keeping in touch with current events and what's going on politically and so forth. I mean, how could you not, I guess? But given right now, from what we know and what you've seen and witnessed, will Donald Trump be indicted? What's your opinion? What do you think?
Well, it's a good question. I think that, the question becomes one now of whether Colin will actually move on him, the question. And I think that if I were to I think the odds are that he will be indicted, and that may not come next week. It may come a few weeks or a month or so after this. And there's a lot of opposition to the idea in terms of the MAGA people who feel that he's being railroaded because of his politics. But the evidence seems to be pointing out that he was very reluctant to do anything about the rioting at the Capitol, and and he may have been complicit in getting things going there. So I can say it's hard to say, but I would bet that there will be an indictment, and then, or at least he'll be, but there'll be a trial or something. And of course, there's a situation going on in Georgia now as well, where the state attorney general may be doing some. He's working very hard and possibly bringing charges against him. So he's facing a possible dual situation where he faces criminal charges.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, he needed 11,780 votes.
Yeah, what can you do about that? Can you round them up for me, huh?
It's on tape. I mean, we have it. We've all heard it. We played it on the show. I can't believe it.
I'm sorry. What do you think about the new journalists today? Do you think they more, fun or more serious, or
Well, I think that when during my I would say most involved time in the 60s and 70s and so forth, there were less outlets, and ABC and NBC, CBS. I worked for all three of them actually at one time or another. But I think there was more, except of course they had the commentators, but there was more of a reluctance to become in any way associated with, seemingly on one side or another of partisanship in terms of politics or whatever. I think there was a very straightforward attempt to give the news directly as it was, and you did have the commentators and so forth. But today, you have such a wild range of political involvement in the news operations, and some of them, that is. I think the networks are pretty well straightforward and so on. You got the cable networks now as well, and so on. So and then you've got Fox, and there's no question where we pretty much know where Fox stands, I think. And so you didn't see that kind of news coverage, and with the internet and all of the possibilities of people voicing their opinions and doing shows of sorts that are way out in one direction or another, you've got a much more mixed involvement in terms of what people may hear and make decisions on issues, whereas back then it was more straightforward, I think, and direct. Now, there was always some, partisanship here and there a little bit, but basically it was not as much as it exists today.
And you've got people like. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And you've got.
Yeah, go. I'm sorry.
It's interesting because, and also we've never ever had somebody's running for president and becoming president such a powerful force in manipulating news to coincide with what he said to be true.
He manipulated fact into fiction, perhaps.
And then he said,
he manipulated fiction. Let's put it the other way. He seemingly manipulated fiction to become fact, and he's got a lot of adherents around the country, and people who believed in him for one reason or another. That his positions coincided with their attitudes and thinking, or he was able to somehow, have them come into his fold, so to speak. And that's what we have today. And unfortunately,
Republicans love it.
We have some way out groups that are able to get their voices heard and gather up and demonstrate their positions as well, and be heard and seen, as I said.
Yeah, we're going to do very well. We've done a great job.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I used to look up to journalists. I still do. They, had the education. They had a good, honest living. Now, today it's like, you get on TikTok or any social media. You could be a journalist, and basically you'll get a great salary just for making fun of journalists. What do you think about that, Bob?
I'm sorry. You give me that question again, please.
Okay, back in the days, you see a journalist. They have enormous education, bachelor's degree, master's degree, everything that across the board. Decent salary. Today's journalists, they could be on TikTok and make millions. What do you think about that?
Well,
and they don't have no education.
It's being basically knowledgeable about what journalism is all about and how information should be handled is important. It doesn't take necessarily a college degree to be able to understand that and to report the news factually and the best you can. Of course, the more education you have, perhaps the better you're able to interpret information and present it in a way that's lucid and understandable by the public, by the public point of view. Let's put it this way: in terms of broadcast, in the form of getting the word out as opposed to getting it out in print. There were fewer people, and they were presumably associated with, long-time journalism, or they were certainly qualified, very, very well qualified for the jobs they had. Today, it's perhaps, as you indicated, a little different. You got a lot of people that have meandered into that, and you've got people doing shows who have a very, very strong political viewpoint and try to get there. It's not news. It's propaganda that some of them are voicing out to the public. So, political accentuating misfacts and alleged stuff that never occurred, and getting the word out to the public, and the part of the public believes it because it either coincides with their basic thinking or because they're easy to fool.
Yeah, it's amazing. You look at people like Sean Hannity, who is a dropout and a former construction worker who is a multi-millionaire and somehow is perceived as this expert on current affairs. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and if you could manifest your opinion to the point of getting a spot on a national TV network and make yourself mean something, and then generate millions of dollars by doing it, well, hey. I don't know. What
I know personally that I got involved in high school, editor of my high school newspaper, sports editor of my college newspaper, majored in journalism, and so on. So I pretty well had a good idea what it was all about when I got in it.
Yeah.
And perhaps you're right. Some of the folks that are in it today have their own ideas and concepts as to what constitutes news and how it should be handled.
Yes,
and they get on TikTok, get 1 million followers, and they make it.
Yeah, now you get, what do they call them? Influencers? You get X amount of followers, and you suddenly get these endorsements and branding, and because you're on TikTok, you're just doing it from your home. You're not even employed as but somehow you're on TikTok, and what is it? The other one's Instagram, and this one, and that one, all these social media platforms. Yeah, and they call them influencers. Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens, and if Mr. Trump is able to run again, gosh knows what's going to happen and where the news is going to come from and how it's going to come.
This will be interesting, and that's what we do on this show. We follow it. We'll follow it. We talk about it, and we like to engage our audience and our callers and our folks that email the show at andydemandtheshow@gmail.com. And Bob, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you, and we'll definitely stay in touch and look forward to having you back again. What a great, insightful conversation as always when you're on the show. And all the best. And thanks for checking in. We really appreciate it and enjoyed. What a blast in the past.
My pleasure, and thank you.
All right, we'll be in touch then. Thanks so much.
I know. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a great one.
Thanks.
Wow, that was fascinating.
Yes. Great dude.
It's terrific. Yeah. What I wanted to mention, I forgot. Speaking of the news, well, I guess it doesn't. We can talk about it now. Is that a former major publication, a Rupert Murdoch publication, the New York Post, slammed Donald Trump Friday night in a big article, saying that he'd be a very unworthwhile candidate to become president of the United States. And that was from a paper that followed Trump, that endorsed Trump. Not only that, but also an article, several op-eds in the Wall Street Journal that they were pleased to publish, slammed the potential candidacy of Donald Trump and what that would mean for this country. If Donald Trump were to gain the nomination, well, I don't think it's possible. First of all, I think he's going to be indicted for criminal activity. That would be a first. If he's under indictment and gets a nomination, that can't happen. That's not going to happen. No way. Anyway, better not. Anyway, better watch my words here. Here's the thing. It'll be the rest of the world. Right now, we're because of what we're talking about and the issues and the Roe v. Wade and all the other things that are happening right now in this country, which are walking us backward by decades and centuries. Rights and gender ID and, what goes on in our bedroom and so a Supreme Court justice talking about whether they considering the legal use of an IUD as a contraceptive. I mean, you hear these statements and you hear these things. It's taking look at Roe v. Wade by itself, a right that was granted by the Supreme Court 50 years ago, law overturned, making women second-class citizens in many ways, that they're no longer responsible for what they do and how they choose to do with their bodies and their reproductive rights is taken away. Pro-life. I don't want to get into this, especially we only have a couple minutes left. But pro-life, everybody is pro-life, as opposed to what, pro-death. If you say pro-life, then the opposite of that must pro-choice or not. And everybody's entitled to their opinion. And if we talked about birth control instead of abortion and promoted birth control, maybe there'd be fewer abortions. Attack the problem at the root. That's all I'm saying, folks. It ain't rocket science. Anyway, we're going to continue more about this. Also, I wanted to mention just real quick, because it's in the news today, is a growing number of Republicans are now openly cheering for a competitive primary field in 2024 and encouraging candidates to jump into the race as some of the GOP get increasingly anxious about the idea of Donald Trump becoming their presidential nominee. Oh, boy, man, that's something else. And I'm glad to see that. We'll talk about who these candidates might be. We'll give our 2 cents regarding those candidates in upcoming shows. And I want everybody to enjoy the evening, morning, afternoon, wherever it is in your corner of the world. Thank you, countries that are listening to this show or the podcast. Our numbers are going way up, and we want to thank everybody for it. We have a lot of fun doing what we do. We love doing what we do. A lot's going to be happening with the show in the near future regarding real radio broadcasts as opposed to just an internet stream and a podcast. So stay tuned for that, folks. We're excited. Yeah.
So
right.
sign off, Amanda. Amanda. I mean,
We're out of here, Cordell. Fun show, eh?
We out of here. Definitely. Have a great one, guys.
That's all, folks.
We'll see you Wednesday.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye now.